Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, and esteemed panelists, thank you for joining us today. I am Engin Demirel, leading sales and marketing at Olympus Europe, Middle East, and Africa for digital health. And I'm truly honored to welcome each and every one of you today to this panel discussion on a topic that is at the forefront of healthcare innovation and transformation: digital health solutions and artificial intelligence applications. Today, we embark on a journey into the future of patient care, exploring the profound impact that technology can have on the way healthcare is delivered. In recent years, the landscape of healthcare has been undergoing a remarkable evolution, driven by convergence of digital health solutions and the application of artificial intelligence. These innovations have the potential to revolutionize the patient care, creating a more connected, efficient, and personalized healthcare ecosystem. However, the success of these advancements depends on a critical factor: user-centricity. User-centricity isn't just a buzzword, it's the guiding principle that can ensure developing health solutions to exceed the expectations. Today, our panel explores the collaborative efforts between physicians and tech entrepreneurs, and emphasizing rapid feedback loops that is from daily clinic routines to address the real-world healthcare needs. Our panelists will share their insights on the synergy between medical professionals and tech developers, revealing how this collaboration leads to groundbreaking solutions. Before exploring this transformative landscape, let me briefly introduce our panel speakers. First, it's my honor to introduce Dr. Maria Pellise, a highly accomplished physician with a stellar academic and clinical track record. While her work at Hospital Clinic Barcelona since nearly 2 decades, she's been leading 3 research groups, one in 2007, assuming the role of clinical coordinator for the Barcelona population colorectal cancer screening through 2009, and became an associate professor at University of Barcelona in 2016. Recently, she's been appointed as chief of the endoscopy department. Specializing in advanced imaging and therapeutic endoscope solutions for colorectal cancer, Dr. Pellise has been the principal investigator for 6 competitive projects and 3 clinical trials in the last 5 years. As our next panel speaker, it's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Ed Seward, a recognized leader in gastroenterology and endoscopy. Currently an associate professor at University College London, he served as director of endoscopy at Whipps Cross University Hospital, and still is the director of endoscopy at UCLH, University College London Hospitals. He's implemented lean methodology for enhanced service efficiency. Appointed as the National Clinical Advisor for Endoscopy by NHS Improvement, Dr. Seward played a pivotal role in developing and testing Productive Endoscopy, a service improvement guide launched in 2014. His leadership extends to serving as the regional EQIP, Endoscopy Quality Improvement Program Lead, for British Society of Gastroenterology. At UCLH, he oversees cross-departmental initiatives to improve GI services, including streamlining cancer pathways and implementing dashboards for efficiency monitoring. Our third speaker, Dr. Rajesh Sivaprakasam, is a prominent figure in renal transplant and dialysis access surgery. After earning his MBBS in 1993, since I'm an Oxonian, let me say, from the other place, he has an MPhil in organ transplantation in 2008. Dr. Sivaprakasam is currently a consultant at Barts Health, NHS Trust in London. His groundbreaking contributions include leading robotic renal failure surgery, and he's developed a predictive scoring system for transplantation outcomes. Further, his leadership in healthcare technology integration demonstrates his commitment to global innovations in patient care as an influential member of advisory boards in India, UK, and USA. Without due course, Last but not least, I'm pleased to introduce Dr. Toth, who has a bachelor's in computation engineering from University of Erlangen in 2012. Erlangen, that's the city where I first landed in 2010 in Germany. So he's got PhD from medical imaging in King's College London, and as the Chief Technology Officer of Odin Vision, he has demonstrated strong leadership by building the team and overseeing the development of cloud artificial intelligence products in medical imaging. He has 7 US patents and more than 50 peer-reviewed publications. He led bringing 2 cloud-deployed AI products, CAD and CAD-U, from concept to market release, addressing critical needs in colonoscopy and early cancer detection of esophageal. Without further dealing, we have 3 chapters here, and the first one is about the collaboration between medtech industry and the healthcare professionals and the providers. Maria, from your perspective, having run multiple projects and clinical trials in collaboration with medtech industry, what are the best practices in collaborating with medtech?
So thank you, Engin, and thank you for the presentation. That was really generous. So that's my point of view, of course. So it's personal and it's totally debatable. But for me, I think that this relation is very, very important. But I like to have it from an independent point of view. Let's see that. I think that we, the clinicians, we need to have independence when we are running our research, because in the moment we lose this independence, then the research is not interesting anymore. I mean, and the results don't have a real impactful outcome very often. So maybe in the short term they will work, but they won't work in the midterm or in the long term. So I think that this relation has to be very transparent and based on a will of improving things and honesty. So sometimes the results are not the ones that were expected, but then we need to build up on those results. And we need, as a clinicians, to feel that we can be independent when designing the trials and that they trust on us. So I think that this is my way of seeing it.
Great, thank you. Ed, having worked with a university hospital spin-off and also leading one of the most prominent endoscopy departments in UK, what did you appreciate in the collaboration? What are the highlights that you can mention working with medtech and also even smaller companies?
Sure. So, and thank you, Engin, for inviting me along today and a very generous introduction. So, as a clinician, for me, obviously the primary outcome is it's patient safety and it's delivering patient outcomes. And in essence, what we don't want to do is be wasting everyone's time if we're exploring something that we don't think has a clinical utility or improves the patient experience. Now, in my specialism, I'm looking for these little things called polyps that grow in your colon that can then turn into cancer. And the better able I'm to find those polyps, then that improves outcomes for the patient. So when Odin came along, I think initially the most important thing was that there was clinical utility. He knew that I had a problem finding polyps, and he had a proposal to fix it, which was teaching an AI to be able to recognize polyps. And I think that's the beginning of the relationship. And where you have medtech companies that are able to communicate and listen to clinicians, we've already heard about the importance of independence. So if we can kind of learn from each other, I don't have the time to go away and develop an AI. So having somebody who's keen and enthusiastic and able to deliver on that, so long as our patients are fully informed and consented and all the rest of it, then that's been a very strong collaboration. And I think the success of Odin's work pays a lot to the fact that they have paid attention to those basic principles of listening to clinicians and really understanding what the problem is.
Great, thank you. Rajesh, one question we were talking outside, just waiting to be able to get in, is really thanks a lot for the great interest. So it's not every hospital is able to do collaborations with medtech industry. How do you, as a healthcare professional and healthcare provider make your hospital and also to our colleagues here as physicians, make it attractive for companies to collaborate with you to develop solutions?
Yeah, firstly, thanks. Thanks for inviting me to this panel, and I'm delighted to meet some of them on the stage and outside. I think the first thing is really to know that what is the problem. And all of us in the room and beyond, we know what the problems we face in the hospital, in caring for the patients. And also, we expect the patients to be part of the problem, which I think it's unfair. That's where I would start from, because we make our problems the patient's problem. So therefore, with regards to engaging with people, it's really, you want to make US Center as a center where MedTech can get involved is engagement. So the people sitting in the floor here are my nurses. So you can see that they are nurses in our dialysis unit. They are in the conference, understanding it, engaging about the role of MedTech. So which means really engaging with not just clinical team, I mean, not just doctors, it's the nursing teams and all other allied staff. That's the first thing. Second thing is the patients. So in the last sort of 3 grant applications, I had a patient on the application. That's the other way of looking at patient engagement. You can write your protocol with the patient involved right from the beginning. And the NIHR and the MHRA, they really value that kind of an approach. That just means that when you design a protocol or write a request for a grant application, you have the insight of the patient right from the beginning. I think in that way, when you have a framework such as that, that really helps for the medtech industry to approach to us. One other thing I will add is the cost. You have to have a way. In renal failure, I'm fortunate to have a network of clinicians in UK, Europe, and US. So we are a small community with a WhatsApp group, for example. What that means is really, if there's a startup which they don't have a significant range for cost bandwidth, then they can approach clinical teams which understands that. And we've done 2 clinical trials with 21 centers with significantly lower cost. I won't say the money, but at the same time, it's really significantly lower cost, and we deliver the outcome. So therefore, it's really the engagement of the people, more importantly with patient, and having a format which reduces the cost and running the trial will make you attractive for medtech, in my opinion.
Great insights, thank you. Daniel, we get to the other dimension, like when comparing the collaboration as a tech entrepreneur, as a tech developer leading teams. So from your perspective, you worked on both ends with a hospital spin-off, a startup, and now that you've joined in Odin Vision, your role as CTO, as also being one of the leaders of Olympus's digital health. So what are the virtues of both worlds when closely working with healthcare professionals?
Right. Thank you, Engin, for the introduction as well. Very, very generous and very interesting question, right? So from my perspective, going through that journey, as you mentioned, starting from UCL, spinning out the technology and bringing it into Odin, and then ultimately to our clinical partners, such as at UCLH, we have seen that our partners really appreciate that we are willing to take the risk to bring cutting-edge technology into clinical sites, which big corporates might not be willing to take, right? They are rather playing it safer, and on the other hand, they have the distribution to have big impact. So for us, it has really made sense to go through this journey from starting to take that risk, bring the cutting edge technology into the hospitals, and then slowly to start also working with bigger corporates to be able to scale up the technology. And we believe that and we clearly see that our clinical partners see this as well, very similarly to us. They appreciate it, and they support us in the very beginning, taking that risk together with us. And later on along the journey, they understand that to have that final impact, to bring it to as many clinical sites, get it into as many hands of clinicians, and ultimately to have as many patients as possible. This is really the way to work with the corporate and to exploit their distribution and sales network to bring ultimately the technology to that many hospitals.
Great, thank you. So we've covered really nice ground here, and I would like to get back to our question. You have mentioned, Maria, independence in the work, and also we have heard from our panelists at Seward how it all started from Rajesh's perspective, how it should be better with the engagement. So there is tons of things to do, of course, as we say in the hospital. You have a lot of clinical research, teaching, and also academic work ongoing. So what is the motivation, apart from what has been mentioned, like the cost here and the working with that you can be going on with medtech companies to bring some innovations and solutions, because you have more than enough to do.
Well, I think that there are two main motivations. One that was already raised, that was the fact that we have needs. We have our patients just in front of us. So those needs are every day there. When you do an outpatient clinic, you get out from that outpatient morning like with 5 things that you really want to solve, and that you see that they are redundant, they come back, and you never solve them. So whenever someone approaches you and you think that this can help you to solve one of those questions, that is the first motivation, of course. And then the second one, at least in my mind, that would be more not so much in the innovation part, but in the other one, it's that sometimes someone can tell you, this is fantastic, that's going to arrange everything, and you really want to prove it. You really want to see if this is true, and that this is going to be sustainable, this is going to be cost effective, that this is going to provide something really good for our community, because we know that the resources are the ones that there are. So if you use these resources for one thing, you won't use it for another thing. So you want to make sure that you are doing what the right thing for the rest of the. So at the end, is the patients what drives you to get there? No, I think so.
Thanks a lot. We are moving to our next chapter, on the motivation to employ digital solutions. Ed, you have a profound expertise in streamlining clinical operations. From your perspective, where can AI and digital solutions can help most to the physicians?
I mean, thank you, Engin. So that's quite a big question, really. And a lot of it is about efficiency. People quite like 3-word slogans, don't they? Like sort of save the NHS, stop the boats. For me, it's cut the pathway. Is how can you identify stuff which is just waste in that patient's journey, and how you can rationalize things so that we can get more patients in front of the right clinicians having the right test at the right time. Now, organizationally, these things that we construct, so I started off with straight to test with the idea that if a GP sees a 6-year-old guy who's bleeding from his bottom, they're pretty much always going to have a colonoscopy, so a camera examination of their lower bowel. So where is the contributor to making that patient wait to be seen by a clinician in clinic? Why can't they just go straight for a colonoscopy? And so long as there are checks and balances in place to ensure that that is the right test to do, then I think that's okay. And we're able to demonstrate a 90% reduction in terms of the patient's wait to get a definitive diagnosis about, okay, this is cancer, this is something you need to be concerned about, or these are just hemorrhoids, don't worry about it, this is how you fix them. And although that's a relatively straightforward pathway that you've constructed, the work behind all that requires a lot of data, and there has to be patient safety checks and balances, and that for me is where AI comes in. So I'll give you another for instance. I have a 10% did not attend rate in my endoscopy unit, and that's become a real focus for us because that's a big inefficiency within the department. So we've started collecting data on which sort of patient is likely not to show up for their appointment. Now, we've not done this yet, and this is a shout out to anyone who is in medtech. If I could feed my data into an AI that will tell me these are the people who are likely not to show up, they're the ones that you have to be calling maybe a couple of times to identify that they will attend their appointment, then that's a big saving for me, because otherwise I'm never going to reach 100% efficiency. I'm always operating at 90. So although human beings come up with the ideas, I'm kind of hoping that AI will give us the deliverability of those ideas. So that's what it's all about.
Those are great insights, really. So from AI solutions to robotic surgery, the data is key in both of them. From your perspective, to to make it more widespread, these innovations to come to the grounds, what needs to change and improve from healthcare provider and even the patient perspective, Rajesh?
I think the first thing is to get everybody not to be scared of technology. That's the first thing. Because often when people talk about a technology, they think about, I mean, if you say AI, first thing is what's going to happen to my data. And I think obviously there is a lot of information out there which is uncontrolled. So which means if you're going to be promoting any solution to your patients or your team, I think it's important to engage with them in the way what you believe in, and also have the person with the solution, like Daniel. I would take them to our team in our peer review meetings. So the company will say, hey, this is what our proposal is, and we will show the value add. We will show what we have done before we even bid for the device, whether it is an endoscope or whether it is a robot or whatever the device is, which means really being transparent, getting the patients to understand that this is the very specific area we are trying to solve, not the whole thing. We're not going to make their life completely different, which means we're not setting up big expectations. And also have the tech partner to tell them what it is instead of us trying to articulate. In that way, the listener, whether it is one of our nursing staff or our board member in the trust who's going to be writing the check, they see from the people who are going to be doing it. And also one thing I always start with is that I always tell them that we go for the low risk, high volume events, like what Ed said. It's really the consent, it's really the patient appointments. I mean, we had 27% DNA rate. So we did an audit on it, and we did some educational models to improve that. Those are the ones which causes the problem. You know, doing robotic surgery is fantastic. It's fun for me. But at the same time, I think it is important to address the issues which makes an impact to NHS. So therefore, really, I think to improve adoption of any technology, it all need to work simultaneously rather than one after another.
That's great, holistic view, really. And Daniel, as one of the leaders of the Digital Excellence Center, so what can MedTech ensure that AI and digital solutions delivers its promise and kind of leverage to its full potential?
Yeah, I think the most critical thing is to make sure that we develop solutions which fit into clinical workflows seamlessly. So disruption is good, and of course we started off with the company to disrupt this space, but you can't have too much disruption in this domain, right? You have to make sure that the solutions that you bring do fit seamlessly into that patient pathway, and you work together with the colleagues to ensure that that is happening, and you are not remote, as Rajesh was highlighting. You join those peer review meetings, and you make sure that you can get in the room and see the procedures where these devices are being used, and get first-hand feedback from your partners, and learn how these procedures are actually happening to make sure that your device is truly user-centered, designed in a user-centered way, that you take all those stakeholders and everything that's happening in that room into account.
Perfect. So final question in this chapter to Maria yourself. We want to cover and with Ed the AI dimension, with Rajesh the robotic surgery. In your experience, the real clinical problems around advanced imaging and therapy, what do you see as the most pressing needs in that space?
Yeah, I was thinking that I wanted to add something because we were talking about patients, but also the professional journey is important because we unfortunately, a part of doing what we really want to do is to be with patients and thinking in clinical problems. We have a lot of other tasks to do, and we usually do them in parallel. So we have to have many things in our mind while we are doing a very specific procedure. So maybe we are doing a therapeutic endoscopy, and in the meantime we need to know everything that we are using and doing, because then we will do the report afterwards. And maybe the afterwards is 1 hour or 2 hours later. And in the meantime, we have to have in our mind the patients that will come after, and we'll have several visits in the room, I'm sure, asking you about how long is it going to go, and the nurse asking you in which jar should I put that. And so there are so many things going on that this makes us to have like a, so anything that can help us to be more focused on what is important and that can facilitate the way we report, having a direct report, and that the continuum, how do you call that, the traceability of things is good, because there are plenty of errors that come from here. a lot of back and forth work. So anything that can facilitate that and that can help us as well, because as clinicians, we are collecting a lot of data all the time, and it's data that then we are not able to use it, which is totally unfair, because we are doing that. So that we can use that data for helping to increase our also to know what we are doing well and not well, and the effectiveness. That will, on the one hand, help us, which is more like background things. And then there are plenty of technical things that can be developed. And then you need to talk to the people that work on that and ask them about very specific things. But I think that this would be always specific on each specific topic, like renal transplantation or ADR, or when you do a technical procedure. But I think that anything that can help on all this background thing that goes behind everything, that will be so helpful, because we can then use that time to speak with patients. Because at the end, we don't speak with patients. We just don't have time to do it. We're filling in forms. So I think that that can be really helpful.
That's really great insights, covering the ground of the mental burden you are having, and how it leaves no space neither for the time nor for the concerns of your patients. And that's a good leeway to our final chapter here before giving some Q&A back to the audience, the development of AI and enabled digital solutions. So Ed, from clinical perspective, we've talked a lot about what these solutions might bring, but what are the limits of AI, and is there a risk of over-reliance of AI going forwards from your perspective?
So you can't mention AI and people not think of, you know, Terminator walking down the street killing people. But I don't see that as being a problem with AI at all. And I'm an enthusiast, so there's a big argument at the moment in my world, the world of endoscopy, in terms of whether we're all going to get de-skilled. So at the moment, in the same way when you hold your phone up and you take a picture, your phone puts little boxes around all the faces, so you know what you're concentrating on. The AI I use in endoscopy does the same thing with polyps. So it will identify, picks out all the little polyps, so it makes it really easy for me to spot them. Now, am I going to be de-skilled? Am I going to get lazy? Am I just going to look for little green boxes and not polyps? Well, actually, no. This has been looked at, and what the data tells us that if you give a bunch of clinicians an AI that helps them to detect polyps, and then you take the AI away, yes, their polyp detection falls, but it doesn't fall to baseline because that clinician has been taught how to look for polyps by the AI. So I think it's actually a positive thing. They are sensitive rather than specific, so there are a lot of little green boxes up there when I'm doing my procedures, and I think my brain has to learn to screen those out. But the learning curve for that is very short, and certainly not the same learning curve that required me the skills to kind of get where I am now as a sort of polyp detection expert. So I feel very positive about the whole thing, and I think that people's understandable anxieties about de-skilling or putting technology between the patient and the clinician, I don't think holds true. And I think so long as you stick to your fundamentals, if you're a doctor or a nurse or an allied healthcare professional, if you stick to your fundamentals of the relationship that you have with your patient, then I think technology will only augment that relationship and generate better outcomes for both.
Great, thank you. So talking about Terminators and AI and the threats that we're having, Rajesh, how to deal with trust issues as an implementation barrier to these AI and digital health solutions?
Yeah, I think that's the key. You start with that one. You know, when you're starting any of these integration or evaluation of any of the tools, you start with how am I going to address the trust? Trust with your team, your organization, of course the patients, and wider information, how it's going to be shared. So you got to have that in your mind when you're starting a discussion with the tech team. And you have to have your own clear idea of what is acceptable and what is not. And I think that kind of clear role is what helps us to deliver medtech trials and get them to completion much more quickly. And second thing is that the trust also means that when you engage, I mean, some of our patients, they participated in one remote monitoring tool trial because they found that it was helping them and they were part of it. When I approached them again, they were involved in further trials as well. So actually, during COVID, one of the trials in renal failure, we were the largest recruiter in Europe, and we did digital consent. So therefore, you can see that there are a lot of ways you can have the trust, and when you have that in mind and the people around you believe that you're keeping it transparent, it not only helps for that trial or that study and beyond it. Another thing, trust where it helps is the cost point of view. So when you engage with your funding teams, particularly in the organization, when you want to integrate the technology, they see that they were involved right from the beginning. So they see the whole evaluation of the product. So that means really when it comes to integrating it, they're already engaged into that one. They trust what is being done, what the data is produced, and what the output from everyone involved, including patients. So that helps with integrating as well. Yeah. So that is absolutely key. But I think it all need to come together right from the beginning when we start a project.
Perfectly addressed. And before getting to the tech dimension, I have one more question to Maria indeed. So in the UK and US perspective, Rajesh had a lot of experience, but you run 3 clinical trials and the 6 competitive projects. From the European perspective, are there other dimensions, like in the European landscape, that is making further barriers to implementation of this digital technologies, Maria?
Yeah, well, I mean that right now all this is the most important thing. It's the law, no, and the legal. Of course, what happens usually is that the legal things come later than the advances, and then that for us as clinicians, it's another world. So it's difficult to understand it, and so we probably need all to learn about it and to know how to work on it, and. I don't know, I think that we have to put efforts into that as well. So we need to change our mind a little bit and open to that other sphere because we need to understand where we need to move to know how to help to advance it. And this is one of the difficulties I think we are all facing. No, the different partnerships are very much limited by this. Yeah.
Great, thank you. One final question, Daniel, before we're leaving, like nearly 10 minutes, which are really good on time, and it's been a really nice discussion and good flow. Daniel, from technical and entrepreneurial perspective, what is holding you not to accelerate further? There is great achievement done. However, there's also the landscape that you can scale up. What could be even better from your perspective in the collaborations working around?
Yeah, great question. I think there are lots of things which are working very well and we can move very, very quickly. So, for instance, obviously the partnerships we have discussed, but not just us, lots of other companies in the same space are focusing a lot on the excellence centers in healthcare. And there are also other sites, obviously, who will be using your products ultimately, right? So building out relationships with not necessarily only the top researchers in the field, but also the, let's say in our field, the jobbing endoscopist, who will be probably 95% of your end users. And I feel like we have to be a bit better at building out those relationships and make sure that we are not, sorry to say this, but focusing too much on you who are the best in your respective fields, but also on people who are not necessarily at that level, but will benefit probably most from the devices that we develop.
Please, Maria.
May I ask you, I think that this is a very important point because for the validity of all these tools, you need to do it on other areas. Do you think that the scientific societies can have an important role here to help to make that contact between the companies and the different other hospitals or other people that are maybe working alone or whatever?
I can jump in as well. I think it's absolutely true what both of you said. I think it is being recognized now. Lancet, New England Journal, BMJ, all of them are coming out with more and more digital specific publications. That's the number one. Second thing is events like this. where you bring in all the people. Of course, we are all self-selected people who believe in these things, but we go back and we talk about it, and that's how my colleagues are here. And last year we had our patients attending the conference. So therefore, I think it's really the journals coming in, the organizations, events such as this, and us spreading the message more. All these things would add to what we're trying to get to.
So yeah, the short answer is yes. I think the societies can help improving the situation here, and we are already working with quite a few of these societies, specifically in the UK, BSG, where one of our co-founders is also leading the AI task force, and he's collecting feedback from all members of the AI task force specifically. So yes, there are definitely lots of advancements here which are supporting us.
BSG in UK, and you are board member of ESGE for the European landscape. That are really great insights. So we have around 7-8 minutes. Any questions from the round?
I can probably share, to be honest. You mentioned instances when you need a solution. Like you can imagine having a solution, you have the data, you wonder whether an AI could help analyze it. Is there a platform of sorts, or is there some sort of mechanism where you can submit your question to all the medtech providers, not to an individual one, and say, I have a problem, I want the solution, somebody somewhere jump in and tell me that it exists already or develop it for me. Is that a thing, or is that just not a thing at all?
Sounds to me like you just invented it.
I think I might.
So congratulations. Patent.
I mean, if I can add, actually, I think NHS England, for example, they put unmet need calls. You may want to look at, so unmet need calls in the renal sector. That's how I found the company. I chased the company and said, you've got a product. It's not even in US. It wasn't FDA approved. I said, look, there is something there which I would consider it. So we started working with them. They are now in Class D from Class A when I joined them. So therefore, really, the unmet need is a good area to start with. I was with NICE yesterday, where they were really looking at early evaluation assessments as well. So you may want to look at what's coming through that. So if you have a product, you may want to write to NICE, because these things will help you to get that validation. And NICE even doesn't require the usual RCTs and everything. They understand that the problem is more urgent than having a perfect solution. So therefore, I think there are really, and the MHRA has opened up the pathway for non-FDA approved products. So therefore, there are certain things you may want to look at to accelerate your effort. That doesn't mean it's going to be launched across the country, but it will give you areas, or maybe clinicians who are interested to partner with, that will give you that foot into that door, and that will get it further. Yeah.
Further questions? If not, yes, please.
So a lot of the solutions that you have mentioned start at the point of an individual who you're in a clinic and there's a problem, and you then apply a change that benefits your clinical practice. But on the complete flip side of that, we've got, we heard earlier about Palantir trying to federate all data. We've got Cerner and Epic coming in, and that's an attempt to do a platform-wide thing. They're quite difficult to integrate, aren't they? Especially if you've got every single physician in the hospital coming up with a small solution that benefits their clinic to get all those in. So how do you see the future being in terms of integration of multiple small changes into something which is supposed to be hospital-wide, platform-wide, even nation-wide, that has to be variable enough to accept those time-level projects?
That's a very good question. I would like to get Ed's perspective on the kind of leading
Sure.
services, and then maybe Daniel, you can address the integration dimension.
Thank you. I mean, it's a really interesting question, and I accept absolutely the premise of it. I think one big advantage of the NHS is it's so huge, right? And so we have, what the NHS has been struggling to do is to try and institute national changes. I'll give you for example. So Cancer Research UK, for instance, run a process called the ACE program, where their job is to try and identify service improvements that occur in one or a handful of hospitals, and then widen them out nationwide. I think you're almost asking for the opposite of that, really. So you need a group that's able to see what's coming through from the data and then can make recommendations that can then be instituted at a local level. The problem I've found we have in the NHS is that we're kind of not really geared up for innovation in that fashion. It's encouraged on a local level, but the issue we have is rolling it out at scale or developing a sort of institutional learning so that what works in Scunthorpe also works in Bloomsbury, where I work. So it's hard, but I think you're right. I think that's a really interesting challenge that's going to develop.
Yeah, from the technical perspective, I think there are already some examples out there where things like this are happening. For instance, the reporting platforms that you are using, right? So you provide a generic solution to all the providers, so your customers as a medtech company, and then you start working with the local departments, the local IT departments to tailor that to the local needs, right? And I think you know this very well. You have worked on this for a number of years. You have your individual needs. You discuss that with the local departments. They are in constant touch with the provider, and that way you can tailor the technical solutions to the local needs. However, I think what might be missing there currently is this feedback loop going back on the global level. So moving those local changes, which might benefit other sites as well, into the global generic platform, right? So that's where we can improve.
Thanks a lot.
If
One
I can
final
add
remark.
quickly,
Yeah.
I think the pharmacy we talk about, we have guidelines for drugs. We don't say what company that is. So it will go in, I think digital pharmacy is going to happen very soon, which means really, we don't say which paracetamol you have to use in Scunthorpe or Royal London or Bloomsbury. So I think we are going into that sector. And the good thing is that the governance organizations nationally, Europe and UK and US as well, they're recognizing that, which means there will be frameworks given for certain diseases, certain type of technology, which you can use. Companies, they have to adhere to the principles of it, like what happens in real world pharmacy. I think in that way, what happens is there is the principles and things what they have to have as a device to be integrated into technology. What that is regional, it can be national, but the data where Palantir and federated data model helps is to bring the data together. But yeah, I think it is exciting times.
Great insights, dear panelists. It was a really nice discussion, and the audience that is really getting through the half of the hall. Thank you very much. And then with that one, I would like to give back to Dr. Shafi, and thank you.
Thank you so much. That was a wonderful moderation. Thank you. I learned so much, and you had a huge crowd waiting to see you. So you might need to crowd surf your way out on people's shoulders to exit the hall. But thank you so much, guys. Thank you.